Welcome back, everyone, to the Xpand podcast. This is your host, Zarin Beatty. I am with already a good friend. I can tell you have good energy, man. This is dope how we met, why we're here in Austin. But Wyatt Hagerty, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Completely.
Honestly, like, that means so much to me, hearing like people that I resonate with always seem to like resonate back, if that makes sense. And so hearing from someone that I respect and vibe with, that they vibe with me as well, is like, yes, like finally, you know, because I'm sure you're a lot like me, where you kind of run into people here and there where you're like too much for them. You know, you're on a different level and they kind of make you feel insecure because you're just expressing your truth and you're at one level and they're at another, and they don't know how to handle it, so they make you feel weird about it, even though that's just on them. Does that make sense? You know, it's like their uneasiness with your, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, but you know what I mean. So it does feel good. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is great.
And to relate to that concept, to be able to resonate and vibe with people who like you are on a similar wavelength, it is nice to be recognized for stuff in other people that mean something to you.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's meditation or we both have a podcast or whichever, to be able to come together and like be accepted and welcomed by the people in the category that like you wish to live in and are living in and choose to live in. I think it's a super healthy thing for our psyche and for our soul. And I said psyche because I just did a podcast with Eric Godzi last night.
Yeah, did he psychologically inundate you with like too much shit and you just walk away confused? That's how I felt after like our podcast.
For sure.
He and I did together. I was just like, that was amazing, but like, what was he talking about? Like, I got it, but it was like so much. And I've listened to that one. I'm sure you'll listen to the one that you did with him over and over and over again. Just like starting to understand each little thing. The dude is one of the most self-educated people I've ever met. Really, really incredible stuff.
He really is. And he's getting better and better at articulating what he knows and what he's learning to people, for people to understand. Yeah. And I've been super fortunate to talk with him over the past few years, you know, every now and then, and kind of have that feeling that you shared happen multiple times, to where I feel like it was more grounded in the episode.
Yeah.
So it's like that even shows building a relationship with any kind of person, how even in 2 years it can develop into something that is vastly different than what it started as.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you watch his first podcast with Aubrey like back in like last summer?
It
was like the
ultimate
like FAQ, or yeah, I just listened to it. Either it was like ultimate life FAQ or something, where they were just answering like questions from Twitter and stuff, because I guess Eric ran Aubrey's Twitter account or something. But from that one to like the most recent one they've done together, and just like hearing him through the Fit for Service Instagram posts and stuff, he's like very, very inspiring to me to see someone like kind of close to my age making like so many jumps and progress, because the difference between that first one and now is like staggering, and it's only been like 9 months. So that's really cool.
That is really cool.
To know that that's possible makes me feel like, you know, I can do that, you know. And
damn. Yeah, man, that brings up a point that has been coming up more and more recently, where I'm going to actually turn that off.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
All good.
How important it is to like embody growth. And so, for example, because it's on topic, Eric and I talked about Don Howard, and
he's the ayahuasca shaman.
Yes, he's one of the shamans from Spirit Quest, and he actually represented a very similar construct to the both of us, which is very interesting to me. It was
have you visited him?
I've been down there twice, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool.
It's completely changed my life.
Yeah. I just went to Peru last April for the first time, and in November and December this year. So yeah, it's very new to me as well, but yeah. I went to a different place, but also 2 times.
Where did you go?
It's called that's a great question. The company is called Ayahuasca Healings, and the location is called El Camino Sagrado, the Sacred Path. And it's an old Native American church where the Spanish used to torture the locals. And so it was a very dark place, and now it's a very light place.
Damn.
Which speaks to the transformative sort of magic that happens there. I hesitate to use that word, but that's what I feel it is. You don't feel that at all, that there was straight up slavery at that place, and like horrible things happened in the name of Jesus, no less. And you go there and you're like, wow, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been to, meaning that they've spent, you know, consciously a lot of effort to clear that space so that you can have a pure experience there, which is really incredible. But side note, what were you saying?
No, that's good.
About Don Howard?
Well, that gives me more feedback and info from where you're coming from. So that's beautiful. That'll definitely help with this whole discussion. But how he embodied wisdom, and like he was the pure embodiment of someone that is full of wisdom and who is wise, and to be able to be around somebody who can vibrate at that level help show us that it's even possible to reach.
Yeah, that's a staggering thing to come into contact with, is someone who's like real, not someone who's just trying it out, which is part of it, you know? Like it's people get kind of upset with people that are just like trying it out. They're trying like living that thing, and they're not good at it yet. So you can tell like they still lie here and there. They still, you know, over exaggerate things and try to like be something that they're not, but they're just trying, you know? So we have to, I think, give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's so cool to meet someone that like actually is that thing. Completely. You know, like of course they're still human, but like, you know, you meet someone that like so closely embodies like Christ consciousness, and you're like, holy shit, I have so much work to do. But at the same time, it's so inspiring where, again, you're like, okay, it is possible. Like this person did it, and they're not that much further along than me. I mean, Don Howard is how old? Like 70 something?
70, yeah.
Yeah. So he's, you know, a little older than we are.
He was born into it also.
Really?
His grandmother really helped show him kind of like that path in a sense.
Oh, that's odd. I didn't know that. I thought he was just some dude from America that wandered down to the jungle and found it, and that was how it happened. Yeah,
he had a long lineage of working with the plant medicine before even going to Peru.
Oh, that's awesome.
Actually, I believe San Pedro or peyote, I think peyote told him to go to the jungle. So like once his like mission was finished with one medicine, kind of help guide him to another, which is pretty beautiful.
Oh, that gives me the chills.
It's wild when you've been in that environment and you understand the communication between realm with spirit and medicine. So to kind of reach a certain part and be guided somewhere else, it's freaking powerful.
Yeah, that idea kind of scares me, because I have this sense that it's going to happen to me. I don't know if I'm not going to say I'm going to be a shaman or anything like that. I don't, obviously the best ones are the ones that are called to do that. But I have this like weird feeling that like 20 years from now, like something like that's going to happen, like in a plant ceremony. And the only reason I think that is because I got that 20-year kind of marker from a plant medicine ceremony. It was basically like, enjoy this time, make the money, make the connections, do the thing, like enjoy the material world, because when you're 44, like no more.
Whoa.
And I was like, what? Like, hey, hold on. like I'm down with that. Like I'll probably be bored of all this, like, you know, not like podcasting and like meeting people and stuff, but like I'll be bored of like Instagram and like my car at 44 probably, you know, with how much things change. Like it makes sense. So I don't really know what to think of that, but I don't know, just hearing stories like that where people are so deeply called to, you know, a medicine journey, or not even just a medicine journey, so deeply called to be the vessel that's going to help transform other people's lives. I mean, you're taking one for the team, you know, like that's a real honorable like sacrifice, you know, to do that for the world. And it speaks to me. I'm not sure if I'll be chosen. If I'm not, I'll be fine with it. But like that idea really resonates with me for whatever reason.
Maybe it's maybe that's a different way to respect and relate to people who do walk that path.
Is just feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, from our level of comprehension, it's nowhere near Don Howard in that aspect, or other maestros of the medicine. But from the experiences that we've shared with the medicine, it is beautiful and comprehensible to kind of meet people who do walk that path.
Yeah.
And there's a different level of respect for that, because it is one of the ultimate sacrifices.
It's beautiful. Like what people do, like the shamans that I've worked with in Peru, like it's a sacrifice in some way. It's not, it's obviously they love doing it. They're not like forced to do it. It's not like, do you know what the Heyoka is in like the Lakota culture? I don't really understand it, so I'm not going to try to describe it and like, not do it justice. But
like Hokahe?
No, it's a Heyoka.
Okay.
It's similar
Weird.
in the word, but a Heyoka is like the holy fool, I guess. It's someone that's like chosen to like live their life backwards. And I don't really know how that works, because what the person that described it to me, they said that this person literally does everything backwards. And I was like, they drive their car backwards. And they were like, possibly. And I was like, that doesn't make, I was like, I don't know if they meant that metaphorically or whatever. But so I don't think that shamanism is like that, where the tribe just chooses you, or you're like called upon to like be this, example of like duality, I guess is the point of that, is to show the rest of the tribe what the total opposite looks like. I'm not doing it justice, describing it in that way. But shamanism, there's like a element of, I guess, like pride to it. Like they know they're doing something good, hopefully. And so calling it a sacrifice is a little weird, but I
get that.
You know what I mean? Like it's
totally.
It's somewhere in between.
Well, beautifully put. It's somewhere in between, because it's a feeling that you would align with and move forward from and to and with. And is that a sacrifice? Because at that point, are you so deeply aligned with that mission that there wouldn't be any other option? And almost it has to kind of come down to that. So if there's no other way or no other move to make, then would it be a sacrifice?
I think a lot of times it does. I think a lot of times, like, for the people that are called to it, especially like Westerners that aren't necessarily born into the culture or anything like that. Like the first shaman I worked with was from England. He looked like he could be from anywhere. He was very like racially ambiguous, so you really didn't know, other than his English accent, that he was from England. Really cool guy. His name is Paul Diamond. Great shaman. And he was talking about his sort of moment that was like that, where it was really like no other choice, and he was called, I believe he described it that he was called to go to Peru for some reason. He didn't know what it was, but like he went there not really knowing what he was going to do, but he knew he was going to meet with this one person. And he said the guy opened the door and said, "You're an ayahuasquero." And he was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're an ayahuasquero." And he's like, "But I'm not from Peru. I'm not born into this." And the guy said ayahuasqueros are born, not made, I believe is what he said. And meaning that they could be from anywhere. It doesn't really matter, that the medicine wants who the medicine wants. And it's not necessarily like you have to be an elder of the tribe to start serving medicine. So it's a pretty cool responsibility. It's like being knighted, you know what I mean? It's like some strange thing bestowed upon a certain percentage of the population to like carry that torch. And I think that's really beautiful, and that like speaks to the intelligence of the plants.
That's a good way to put it.
That like there's some, have you ever heard the idea of that plant medicines like ayahuasca and San Pedro and mushrooms and cannabis and all this stuff are actually spirits that have incarnated here to help us, that like they are like a higher intelligence, like, and so they're such a high intelligence that they're not like, I'm going to be a human, so I can learn to be a human. Like this is actually like mid-level stuff, and being ayahuasca is like way high level, like level 999, and we're only at like level 60 right now, you know, like that kind of thing. And so they're actually more evolved in a sense and incarnating in that way. That's just how someone else described it. I don't really know.
I haven't heard it described that way, but that's really fascinating because, I mean, there would be a communication there, and somewhere, somehow, that thing, that intelligence would be communicating, whether there's a lot of, discretion. Is that because that's inside of you, or are you going somewhere? Are you communicating with something else? And, there's a lot of talk where, like, I'm not sure that matters because it's still providing healing. It's still providing, the care that we would actually need as people. And I feel like we can get caught up, especially in the Western world, on why and how and where this is coming from and everything. But when you get into just experiencing what's going on, that's where I think we can pull, the deepest lessons from.
Mm-hmm. So how did you end up doing it in the first place? What led you to go down and try it out?
We, excuse me. I did not know that this discussion would go this route. It's pretty beautiful.
It can go, you can change it.
No, it's just, it's so fascinating how, that's why I love, like,
well, I mean, you're wearing
genuine.
a Wachuma shirt
Totally,
right now,
right?
Yeah.
But to have it relate with you, it's really fascinating.
Mm.
And so we were researching Mother Ayahuasca for years before we went. And
who's we?
My dad and a really good friend of mine.
Wow.
So, yes. And when Aubrey was on the Joe Rogan Podcast, number 498, we knew exactly where we'd go. Because he came back talking about Spirit Quest.
Is that the one where he's wearing a black shirt with like tie-dye sleeves?
I don't know.
Because I feel like every person I talk to is like, do you remember that one Joe Rogan from like way back in the day where Aubrey talked about ayahuasca for the first time? And I was like,
probably the same one.
I think that's the first podcast I ever watched. I say that and I'm pretty certain that's what it was.
So many people.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That episode changed the planet, like for real.
Yeah, because I mean, how many, like 10 million people were exposed to the idea? Like no one had really heard about it.
Yeah.
I mean, people had heard about it, but it wasn't
unless you were like already in that world. That's
a
completely brand new experience.
Yeah, I was telling my parents about it as like a 19-year-old, and they were like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, like there's some thing in the jungle that can change your life. And they were like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is, but like, you don't want to do that. And like all my friends were like, it's going to break you. Don't go down there. And so I didn't for 4 years, but yeah, that was, I'm pretty certain that was the first podcast I ever heard. So
it's powerful what an episode can do for people.
Right.
Whether it's like Dr. Rhonda Patrick or, Aubrey or Godsey even now. It's cool. But when we knew where we would go at that point, it was just like the clock was ticking. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, our good friend went down. And so he went by himself completely, came back. He went back again the next year. My dad went and I went. So the three of us went down. And from there, man, it's literally, I don't know, going down twice. It's amazing how the medicine knows where to pick up from where it left off.
Right.
It's just like it's a process of development, and it doesn't miss a beat. It knows where you are. It knows how you should be receiving the information that you should be receiving. Mm-hmm. And although we may all be learning very similar lessons, maybe you should be learning your lesson in more vibrational tone. Maybe someone should be learning it through a more visual aspect. Like the medicine, it's higher intelligence, man. It's the highest form of intelligence I have ever come in contact with. It's pure medicine.
It's as when you said it knows where to pick up where it left off, that was one of the eeriest things that I experienced was going there once doing it, having the third ceremony end in this kind of like, there was like no closure, you know, the last ceremony of that retreat. And I was like, wow, like, I know I'll be back. I know this was helpful, but like that was really like abrupt for it to end that way. And then for it to pick up in this same language, like you're talking about, like vibratory, visual, audio, language, and then, but for it just to be in a different way. But there's like, you can very clearly tell the similarities. That's a bizarre concept. And I think that it kind of speaks to the state of mind that someone's in whenever they're there. Because the first time I went, I was really sort of panicked and like not in a good place. And then coming back again, it was like, okay, you can chill. Let's go a little bit deeper this time because you're more relaxed. Like, you know what to expect. Like, don't freak out so much, you know. And I'm sure you felt something similar, you know, coming back to it and kind of knowing what to expect.
Totally. I mean, once you've done something before, it's much easier to do it again, unless it's crazy. Like, I don't know. I've been skydiving, and I don't think I'll ever go back. So like, I've done it once. So there's like a fine line of like, I'll do it, but like, I'm never doing that again. But
yeah,
I think when you're on a path like this, the more familiar you become with that world, you know, and internally, the better you're able to operate in that realm.
Yeah,
whether it's
absolutely.
meditation or floating or ceremony or whichever. And they seem to be very similar in many different aspects. And Don Howard talks about how like advanced medicine work is more like a deep meditation. So the deeper you're able to go and calm things down and be within stillness, like the deeper you're able to go.
I will agree with that 97%, but I was forced against my will by ayahuasca to go as deep as I've ever gone because I was resisting it. Like I had never resisted it before, and I did, and it was like, nope, this is non-negotiable. We're going here. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going to do that, you know? So it's interesting. Do you find that you get a little bit more apprehensive the more you do it because you know what to expect, and like, not that you're afraid, it's a different feeling. It's like, you're like more apprehensive because it's like, here we go again. But the first time you do it, it's apprehensive because you don't really know what to expect. But then you become, I don't want to say afraid, but like, you just get that. It's like before you know, jump off a cliff into a lake or whatever, you get that like, ooh, like, am I about to do this kind of thing? Where the first time it's really so uncertain that you don't exactly get that same feeling. That was my experience. Like every time it got a little bit harder to, you know, hold the medicine down, and a little bit harder to like get still, if that makes sense. Cause it was like, okay, like this is going to be, cause it builds on itself. The more you do it, the more intense, the deeper you go, you know, it's like a little rabbit hole that you go down. And so
it is gradual, but gradual in that realm, it's
it's like that hockey stick, you know, like it kind of ramps up and then all of a sudden you're like way up there, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you articulated that very well, and for my own personal experience, I would relate that to deep respect for that world. Because I've been humbled beyond being humbled, man. I've been humbled so deeply in that world where I am able to respect it as much as I possibly can. And that pushes me to be more strict with the diet, more strict with the preparation, more...
It's huge.
It's huge, man. You know, because you're supposed to, you know, be absent, or you're supposed to not have like sexual intimacy for a certain time period beforehand.
Like 2 weeks or a month leading up to it.
I go a month.
Yeah, that's what I did the first time.
For sure. And just those concepts of like, how much are you willing to put in? Because it's like, it's bizarre to comprehend, if you haven't been in that world, how like little control we may really have, but how much we're able to guide if we're like allowed to by the medicine. It comes down to like building a relationship and like with yourself, and you know, however this ceremony goes. But like that's just it's beyond, man.
Yeah, I mean it really is remarkable. And I think that probably one of the greatest things I walked away with was just like a real understanding of like our energetic centers in our body. You know, people talk about chakras all the time and everyone's like, fuck you, I don't care. You know, like, we get it. Your yoga teacher talked about the root chakra. I honestly don't give a shit. But like having the understanding of like why there is so much preparation in getting ready for ayahuasca, and why there is this emphasis on no sex, like no heavy food, no alcohol, no coffee, you know, all these things. Like the energy in your body, that like kundalini spiral starting in your second chakra, your sex chakra, your creation energy, like that's where your life force begins, you know? And then from there, you're able to travel down to the root, take care of your health and your grounding in your body, and then spiral your way back up and out the top of your head, connecting to that eternal light, and like viscerally like feeling that in a ceremony and being like, oh, I get it. Like, this is like a map for me to like understand my like mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, you know? Because, and I think this is my understanding of it, I think that the chakras represent a dimension as well. That's why they call it like 4D heart consciousness, because it's the fourth dimension. And most people are stuck in the third dimension, where they're literally just like, solar plexus is the third one, the yellow one, sensory experience, sex, the root or the sacral chakra, and like living and breathing and just being alive, the root chakra. They're just stuck there. They're not loving. They're not speaking their truth. They're not seeing with intuition, and they're not connected to shit. That's basically most of humanity. And no disrespect, like everyone's on their path. I understand like life is hard and not everyone's going to get these messages, but it's bizarre to feel that like so viscerally and just be like, oh wow, like there's levels, you know, there really is. And to know that maybe at times I've hit the fourth dimension, maybe even the fifth, probably not. I don't want to be too pat myself on the back too much, but to like know that that's a like actually like aligning yourself, like that's a crazy concept, to like actually start to transform not only yourself, your physical self, your spiritual body, your emotional body, but to like transform the world around you due to your own bodily energetic alignment is like, I mean, that right there, like if you go down there and get that lesson, you could probably call it quits and just work on that the rest of your life and you'd be fine. Obviously there's so much more to learn, but I like that should be taught in like kindergarten, I feel like, you know.
You absolutely nailed that. Because
I felt it. That was very bizarre.
Experience.
Yeah, right there I just kind of like went away for a second. That just all like, yeah, that felt very bizarre to like, I'm back now, but for a second it was just like whoosh, you know.
I've never heard it described as dimension before.
I don't know if that's, I don't know if people say that, but it does make sense, right?
It makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's how I felt it, and I kind of put it together with a few things other people said and I read about. I'm sure something exists out there that talks about that more in depth, but wouldn't it make sense that like, you know, physicists and stuff talk about different dimensions and all these things, and it's like they think that God is in the 8th dimension. Well, what's the 8th chakra? It's God. It's the light above your head. No, and you're like, wait, hold on. Like, is science and spirituality and all these ancient things, are they coming together? You know, that's really cool for me to think about. That's like one of my favorite.
Yeah,
it
is a really cool time to be alive in that aspect, where we're able to bring light into the spiritual world in a scientific way. And Einstein had a quote, a super long quote, but it revolved around the concept of, like, first there's intuition and then there's experiment. So you have to know something is off or something can be discovered. You have to feel it deeply, embody that sensation, and then learn what that might be. So like that, like intuition was the root of all scientific discovery, which is pretty beautiful.
I mean, it makes sense. It's the same with like creativity, is like someone kind of wants something and they don't really know what it is, and so they make it, you know. They just like that's like the craziest thing of all time to think about, like that someone was like, I want my voice to be louder, so they made they made this. You know, and
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's the same. Yeah, it's the same with scientific discovery. Someone's like, I think, you know, whatever they had. Do you know what miasma is?
I don't.
Miasma is a Black Dahlia murder album. Came out in like 2000. No, I'm kidding, but it is. It's this idea. It's this idea of, it was basically before people knew what germs were. They thought that things that like smelled and looked bad would make you sick, which is kind of correct. You know, they'd see like mold. They'd be like, that smells and looks sick. And so they said that it had like miasma. It had like a dark presence to it. And so someone was like, I think you're full of shit. I think that there's actually like little particles in the air. And then they study microorganisms or microbes and they find out that germs are real, you know, and then they develop germ theory. And now we know that like there's physically like little things crawling on us, that some of them are nice and some of them aren't, you know, and like that was an intuition that person had. Like you said, they were like, I don't know about that, you know, and then they looked into it and they figured it out. And so I think that we're really doing that on kind of a large scale right now with science and spirituality, where we read the book this month, You Are the Placebo, Joe Dispenza. I love that guy. Like, I can't get enough of his stuff because he's exposing science for all of its weaknesses that it has, that people, for whatever reason, you know, if you ever go on like Reddit, it's all science. It's all just people being like, man, I live in the third dimension. I'm buttoned up and you can't, if I can't hit it with a rock, it's not real, you know? And they just have this like very, like, people worship science as a religion. And I love people coming in now and being like, actually, this shit that people have been talking about for 5,000-6,000 years is more valid. And maybe in order for the world to get it, we have to prove it with science, you know? So they have to kind of speak the language of the current regime in order to break that regime down and help change it, you know?
Damn. Ooh, that's a freaking great way to put it.
I don't think I came up with that. I think someone else said that.
But that's honest.
I'm not going to take credit.
But regardless, that's a really good way to put it, man.
I think it's true, you know?
Well, yeah, how else would we be able to shift or move a species but to tap into the species and how it articulates and how it communicates and how it currently comprehends something?
Yeah.
You help speak its language and their language, and then you can maybe redirect them to seeing essentially the potential.
Yeah, like you have to convince a certain number of the population that their mind can fix illnesses. You have to give them, you know, an N and a P value and a sample size and, you know, a controlled study and all these different things in order for them to really get it, you know? Like, I've talked about it with a lot of people. Like, for example, my girlfriend is in medical school right now, and I talk to her about this stuff, and she's like, well, you know, because she's in the science world, you know, and it's good to get healthy skepticism, but sometimes her and her friends, I'm like, you guys don't, like, you know, it's really frustrating because I don't have the research to speak their language. I'm only speaking from experience, which sounds like the ranting of a crazy person sometimes. When I'm like, look, ayahuasca cut me into 1,000,000 pieces and then put me back together and I'm healthier than I was before. And they're like, okay.
Maybe the scientific approach helps share the experienced information with people who may never experience what we or those people go through.
Yeah. And that's why I really like, you know, like Joe Dispenza, because he has, like, yeah, he's a chiropractor. I will, you know, it's a little touchy with people as soon as someone finds out that a doctor is a chiropractor, they're like, oh, come on, are you serious? You know, because it seems like all of the hokey, like, self-help doctors are unfortunately chiropractors, but that's okay. I still think that he's very valid, and I just really love the way he brings the two things together. He doesn't really say anything that's that outlandish. He speaks very like kind of surface level. Like he's not using big words. He's not trying to confuse you and make it mystical. He's like, look, this is what happens to people when they're in this situation. How did that happen other than their mind did it? How did that happen other than, have you ever heard him talk about, what emotions, it's like the mood, the temperament, and the personality trait are?
I think so. I think he covered that on the impact theory.
Yes, that's the first thing he says on impact theory.
Such a freaking unbelievable interview.
Yeah, I just watched it last night for like the 5th time. And
it's so much information in that thing.
I know. I can only get through a few minutes at a time, and I just kind of sit with it, and I'm like, oh, I still don't get it. Let me see it again, And so that idea, I think, is a really, because he's using like, that's a psychological scientific thing, and now he's using that to explain a spiritual concept. So getting that language out to people is like really, really important, because like I said, most people are stuck in the 3rd dimension. They truly believe that the only things that exist, you can knock on it with your hand. That's the only thing that exists, because that's the 3rd dimension. You know what I mean? Once you've touched the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, wherever you want to go, who knows how far it goes. There might be 111 dimensions. We have no idea. But
good wordplay, by the way. Number play.
111.
Yeah, 111.
Yeah,
from what you were talking about earlier.
yeah, absolutely. That's my, when people say like 100% or 110%, I always say 111%. I don't really know why. It just feels better.
Yeah.
Because whenever you put 110%, that zero looks pretty funny. Lonely, So you
I
give it a
I
friend.
always say 1400%.
1400.
Don't know why. It just feels better. It feels
14's
proper.
a good number.
1400%, man.
Yeah. 1400%. 144,000%. Have you ever heard? Do you know what the 144,000 is?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna butcher this so badly. So like, just if someone is gonna this is going on YouTube.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna shit all over this explanation, but it's fine. So there's this idea that, do you know the chakras have petals, right? Mm-hmm. They're represented with these petals, and I think it goes like, I want to say 4, 6, 8, 12, 64.
Yeah, they're like multiples in some way. I think 8 maybe, I don't know.
And then like it all adds up to 144. All the petals add up to 144. Excuse me. That's that kimchi I had for breakfast. Repeating on me. And so it all adds up to 44, and then the crown is 1,000. And because the crown is so much higher in vibration, that connection, you multiply it, so your petals are 144,000. It's exponential. It's not just like you add the crown to it. The crown multiplies the power of all of these by 1,000 when it's all in alignment, if that makes sense. And so 144,000 is this like vibratory number. It's also interestingly 12 times 12, and 12 is like allegedly that's the largest single digit number. Like I know 12 has 2 digits, but it should be a single digit number, if that makes sense. Like that everything should be in like, what's the word? Like groups of 12. Like that's why time is 12 and like everything in math and geometry. Like I'm not, like I said, I'm not explaining this well.
Totally.
People that actually read books are better at describing things like that. And so basically like all math, like that's why the number 13 is looked at as unlucky, because in occult practices, 13 represents the transformation, that 12 is the full cycle, and then 13 is 1 past 12, resetting the thing. So 13 also represents 1 in a way.
Okay.
And so that represents, it's literally means the transformation. And so that's why people that talk about like Masons and the Illuminati and all that stuff, that they're obsessed with the number 13, and that's why Christianity is against the number 13, and why most buildings built during a certain era don't have a 13th floor. Did you know that they skip? They go 12 to 14.
I only know that because of Kanye West.
When did he say that?
Dude, I honestly don't remember. It was on some crazy rant that he was on talking about, I think it was to Trump, saying how
in his office or whatever,
something like that. Yeah, it's talking about how hotels don't have a 13th
whatever
floor.
He said, he's right. I love Kanye. Whatever he says, I'm like, yep, that's the truth. He just says the most outlandish shit, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like he says it's not illegal to not listen to music. It's illegal to be naked. I don't know what it means, but I love it. You know what I mean? Like I guess what he's trying to say is that everyone should indulge in music that touches them in a way, and they should be free to express themselves. That's what I got from it. So I like it, even though it's nonsense.
That's beautiful.
But anyway.
Yeah. Back on track.
Yeah. So the 12 times 12, the 144,000, all this stuff. Allegedly, there is this cosmic, interdimensional, like interspiritual moment happening right now where 144,000 people on Earth are being called to reach fourth dimensional heart consciousness. They're called to elevate themselves in order to elevate the vibratory nature of the planet. I don't know if that's true. It sounds pretty cool. It sounds like a great call as to try to be a hero and do that, whatever that is, to live through the heart and live through, I guess, that like Christ consciousness. I guess Christ consciousness would be full alignment, but like living through the heart fully, that's a good accomplishment. That's a life well spent, if you're able just to do that, let alone all the other ones. I mean, who knows what living through the third eye would be like if you'd just be on DMT the whole time, if you'd even be able to like concentrate,
Maybe that's like the homeostasis between, like the pure balance between.
It is, right? There's 3 below and 3 above.
Yeah,
so yeah,
right.
Exactly. So that might be how you navigate.
Like efficiently.
Yeah.
In our plane.
Ooh, how about that?
That's kind of dope.
Yeah. Because I think whenever you enter the 5th, you're kind of like a Paul Selig type character where you're like channeling and you're not really there, I've never met him. So I'm not saying like he's a, empty vessel. I'm sure he's a really cool guy, but like, I think maybe when you get to that point, you're kind of like, you're less fun to be around, if that makes sense. Not saying he's not fun to be around, totally. But you know what I mean?
Just like in general.
Yeah. So it's like the heart is really where, like you're saying, it's that perfect balance point. It's that interplay.
That's interesting. Don Howard talks about how like the mind is where we go to work, the heart is where we live. So like the heart is
that's
home,
a great quote.
And that's like he's full of beautiful phrases,
I'm sure.
And like if this is home, then how do we function more from home? How do we live here? How do we reroute back into kind of what we're talking about, that homeostasis, that balance, that harmony in a sense. And it's interesting because in Eastern philosophy, the hara, the center of gravity, is deep in the stomach, deep in the belly, and it's known as the perfect balance between the earth and the heavens. So like that's where everything comes together for you, and sort of have that concept resonate with me because I love Eastern philosophy, and then also have the heart resonate. It's very interesting to kind of pull wisdom from both categories of, human experience, really.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool when you can kind of bounce between or back and forth. Maybe that's kind of what Paul Selig can do. Kind of like flow in, flow back out. Like,
yeah, because it seems like he's
unsure, but
yeah, like he's a really warm, cool guy when he's not channeling, but when he's channeling, he's like not there. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if someone was just channeling all the time. You'd be like, can you get away from me? Like, you'd be like, this was nice 20 minutes ago, but I'm really bored. I mean, maybe that's just my inner fear that they're going to tell me something I don't want to hear, I don't know.
Honest point, man.
You ever feel that? Like that you, like we were talking about at the very, very beginning, like people a lot of times I think shun others because they make them feel uncomfortable about themselves. It's not necessarily that the person Well, I think that's really what it is. Like when someone makes you uncomfortable, it's because you are uncomfortable. Like they're not doing, you know what I mean? You personally are uncomfortable with their words and vibes and action.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
You know, so, you know.
It's weird because,
side note.
Well, although they may be influencing the discomfort, where is it really resonating and residing? It would be embodied in you. So partially, I talked about this with Godzi yesterday, actually. Like, how much of you is producing the discomfort and how much is the influence producing the discomfort? And is there a way to kind of balance that out or dissolve it in a sense?
I think it's like 90-10. Like, I think it's mostly you, you know, not you specifically, but like, it's all your fault. It's, yeah, like the other day I was, have you ever done Cambo before?
I have not.
I did it yesterday here and with a like certified practitioner. Great guy. His name's Jason. He was so cool. He was like the best dude. But on my way there, I was kind of in this like panicked, like shitty, like I was going to be late and I had to like go to the ATM so I could pay him and all this stuff. And I was just like freaking out. And I pull up to a stoplight. There's this homeless dude with a big piece of poster board that basically told his like life story on it. And it was like heartbreaking, you know, and he didn't look like a typical homeless dude. He looked like a guy that like this was his last resort. And I had no money to give him. I had nothing to give him. I had no water, like, you know what I mean? Like it just felt like really shitty for a moment. And he was standing outside my window like, sir, like, you know, almost like tapping on my window, holding the sign up. And he was like, I have 3 kids, like, please help. And he was, you know, an immigrant from somewhere. He sounded like, you know, he had a Middle Eastern or, you know, like Central Asian accent, you know, Kazakhstan, somewhere in that area. And I don't know, I just like, he wasn't doing anything wrong. That guy was just trying to like make it work. But I felt like I wanted to scream at him for some reason, you know, and I drove away from it being like, you just projected all of your insecurity about not being able to help this guy.
Damn.
Being one of the people that just, you know, puts their sunglasses on and just like looks ahead and completely ignores them like that. You know what I mean? Like I felt bad about myself for being the typical ignorant American for a second when there was nothing I could do, but like I should have just, you know, pulled the window down and been like, hey man, I don't have anything for you, but good luck. Like everything's going to be okay. That's all you know, that might've meant more to him than giving him money.
Man.
And I didn't, and I felt horrible about it. And I blamed him. And then a second later I was like, nah, that was you. That had nothing to do with him. That guy's just trying to live. And that happens all the time. That happens every time you bring up ayahuasca and someone instantly gets freaked out and like changes the subject or like calls you weird or whatever, like whatever people do when that stuff comes up, it's not your fault. It's them not wanting to open up to those ideas, you know? I think.
Yeah. Wow. First of all, good for you for being able to share that story. That shows the depth of your character, man, to be able to be that open, that honest, and like express that you're a person who feels those things, and to tell our platform about that, man, that it really does help show and highlight like who you are, because we as people feel discomfort in certain moments, and to completely deny that or just push it under the rug, we aren't able to grow from those moments. And now because you've experienced it, you reflected on it, and now you expressed it, you're better able to prevent that from happening again.
Hopefully. I've been known to repeat mistakes.
Well, repeat it or not, we are better able to handle things. That you have that feeling 20 times, eventually you can be like, fuck, okay, I'm probably not going to do that anymore. And that's how we really grow as people. It really isn't in the steps that we make perfect. It's understanding where we went wrong, how it felt, what we do with that, how we manage our emotions, and how we hone into like how we actually want to behave as people. And that's what I feel like meditation and all of these other modalities really help, at least me personally do, would be hone in on the behavior that I would like wish to embody as a person.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a really, it goes back to the Joe Dispenza thing. Like that put me in a mood and I was able to stop it before it became my temperament. You know what I mean? Where it became this cascading thing where I was living it over and over and over again and beating myself up about it. Like I could have walked in here today still upset about that yesterday. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people is they, like the thing that really freaked me out, and I'm not going to say them specifically under the bus, but I know somebody in my life I'm close with that had something that happened to them when they were a kid, and they are still that kid dealing with that thing right now. What Joe Dispenza says about they had something happen, it put them in a mood, they relived that experience over and over and over again, and that became their temperament. And it's like, oh, what's up with so and so? Why are they acting this way? And I'm being careful not to even gender them and say if they're a man or a woman. And then that becomes their personality trait. That's something about them that you can't take away from them. So whenever they interact with you, you are like, what's their fucking problem? Why are they like this, being so shitty? Like I don't deserve this. And recently it's been a blessing to realize like, oh, it's not my fault. It's not my fault at all. They just went through some shit a really long time ago and never dealt with it. So they are just compounding on it. And that's their personality trait. Like you mentioned, I forget what you said, thank you for sharing that on the platform. Well, one of my personality traits is oversharing. Because a long time ago, someone gave me a pat on the back for being expressive or whatever, or I was ignored or whatever as a kid, and that was my mood, and then it became my temperament, and now that's why I could talk for an eternity about anything. I don't care. so that, that's something I have to be careful about sometimes, to not just like, as soon as I meet someone, be like, hey, guess what happened to me?
But, why do you feel like people become attached to certain things? Like, why do we as people attach ourselves to an experience or an emotion or a feeling or a process that we just like don't fully overcome?
I mean, I think the easy answer is to say that they're afraid of the discomfort of changing, I think things get stuck in our subconscious, and I don't know if I don't know the specifics of it, but they say that there's something like our conscious mind is only like a couple % of our mental capacity, and like where our thoughts and actions come from, and so rewiring your subconscious mind and rewiring like that deep part of you is really hard, and it requires a lot of things, a lot of parts of you to die. There's me personally, I'm struggling with a lot of things right now where in order for me to evolve and move on to the next step, like I'm going to have to put away some like childish, like old behavior that I really don't want to put away because it's comfortable. It reminds me of some time in my past, or it's just that safety of that like childish ignorance, and Eric Godsey actually introduced this concept to me that, completely changed my life whenever I heard it. And I think I've talked about it once a week, every week since I've heard about it, at least, if not more. It's such a like core idea that makes so much sense. And it's this idea that in mythology, in religion, spirituality and stuff like that, there's an idea that whenever the big god, like Zeus or Odin or like capital G God from the Bible or whatever, reveals his true form to a human, that they would burst into flames or like go insane or like crumble into pieces or like whatever the analogy is. There's this concept that basically the highest form of light and consciousness and vibration, if you glimpse it, you'll catch on fire. And people are like, oh, that's so scary, because like when I think it's Krishna shows himself on the battlefield to the soldier in the Bhagavad Gita, the soldier goes insane and like begs him to stop, you know, appearing like that, to go back to his humanoid form because it's too much for him. And so people are like, oh, that's really scary. Like we should be afraid of God. And that's not really the idea. And so Eric said that he thinks it means that whenever you glimpse your highest self, that means that everything about you right now has to die in order for you to become that thing. And so I think that people get really caught up in who they are right now. And they don't want to really reconcile the things about them. Like, you know, you and I each have a thing, probably multiple things, probably like 40 things if we're really being honest about it, that like, if we're going to do what we want to do, that like we got to let go of it, you know? And like, it's really hard. And that's why, you know, plant medicines can be so beautiful. That's why, you know, Kambo and ayahuasca and wachuma and stuff have been so powerful for me individually, because it just helps you like rip that thing out and be like, I don't need that anymore. You know, that's not me. That fear-based mentality is not me. And, you know, really it's just, I think going deep into that dark forest that exists within you and just having the courage in the face of that fear to like walk into it is, you know, something that a lot of people just don't have. And that's okay. You know, like we've all hesitated to jump in, you know, we've all had to take a moment to summon the courage to face that thing about ourselves. So some people, it might take their entire life and they might face it on their deathbed, and that's okay, you know, and that's a really hard thing to, for me, I'm kind of like maybe a little bit too frantic about this stuff. I kind of want like, come on guys, like time's running out. Like, let's go. Like the world's about to explode. Like, let's do this. Like, stop being shitty to each other. Like, what the fuck are we waiting for? You know, like, so, but you know, like people like Paul Selig say is that like everything is blessed. Like there's no, like if the world blows up, like on the other side of this, we're going to be like, oh, isn't that fucking crazy? We didn't even come close to getting it right. That's so funny. Let's try again, you know? And that's scary to think about, you know, but it is ultimately okay. And that's also really scary to think about.
Yeah.
And so everything from that really, really high level thing of, you know, everything is okay, everything is blessed, like war and poverty is just as divine as world peace and complete fulfillment across the board. That is the same, that is just as hard to grasp for people as they have a personality trait that they need to spend time working on. It's the same fear coming in, that same fear of like, ooh, we got to let go of some stuff in order to really feel that and really make it happen.
Beautifully well put. And I feel like it's really important to also add to that, although you stated, you know, destruction and war are divine and important, for me that means that all of these things help us become the way that we should become. They help us learn how not to behave. They help us learn what fucking didn't go right, how these choices hurt humanity, how these behaviors are truly destructive. And with those lessons, we are better able to shift, push things aside, and move forward and move onward from a much better platform.
Have you seen the movie Mother?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Mother with an exclamation point. Came out. Does that help? It was with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem.
No.
You should watch Mother.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. What you just said right there is the movie Mother, and it's a movie that like makes me sick to my stomach to watch. It's really, really hard to get through, because if you're in any way consciously connected to anything, it's really going to affect you in this deep way, especially the last shot when you get what all of it meant. And whenever you watch it, give me a call and I'll explain it for you, because it's like one of my favorite movies, and it's fucking brutal because it's that truth of like, okay, we've like, I don't know what it's going to be, but like a reset is coming in some way. People call it the apocalypse. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be like some firestorm, you know, and everyone's going to die and only the chosen are going to survive. Like, maybe. I fucking doubt it, I think. But I think the reset is coming in the way that we live, the way that we all are now collectively starting to see, like you said, how not to be, you know. And I think it's really up to the collective consciousness of humanity to either reset and just dive into technology and just go that way, or to return to what I believe is God, which is nature, you know, and the power within ourselves, which is the same as the power within nature. I think that there's a choice right now, as we can either kind of go into hell, which I think is a technological prison, or we can go into heaven, which is a natural freedom, if that makes sense. You know, that's the duality. That's the polar opposite. That's being stuck in hell, is being stuck in the third dimension, is being stuck in those lower chakras. That's what I believe hell is a metaphor for just being stuck down here. And that's why, you know, Satanism and all these things, it's all about like bodily pleasure and just like lower vibrational things, right? Because you're just stuck in the third dimension, and that's what. Yeah, I know. This freaked me the fuck out the first time I realized that. And then that heaven is a metaphor for your body being in alignment and connecting to God, which is the source of all energy in the world, the source that powers the atoms within us, you know. And that, you know, that concept kind of makes me want to cry sometimes when I think about it. But it really is, yeah. 10 a.m. on a Friday, strap yourself in. Are doing this. But yeah, it's true. It's true.
You just boiled it down to 2 words.
Well, what are all the sins? They're all bodily pleasures. Damn. Or your inability to control yourself, you know, your inability to choose the right thing. Like greed is a lower vibrational urge, or what's the word? Not instinct. You know what I mean? It's you want the satisfaction of obtaining something. That's not going to serve your heart or your truth or your intuition or anything like that. It's going to, on a sensory level, it's going to make you feel good. If you acquire this really nice car, that may get you sexual pleasure from some partner that admires you on this very low surface level, you know?
Oh man, you're just fucking nailing it.
That's hell. That's what hell is. I don't believe that hell is a real thing. I think hell is an earthly thing, and it's a metaphor, and that's why we have all of these ideas. Like, did you know that almost every major religion has a map of the chakras for the body? Like in Catholicism, the 7 sacraments are a map of the bodily chakras. And if you look at someone that's a lot smarter than me, explain it, you go, oh, that makes quite a lot of sense. And then there's one in Judaism, there's one in Islam, there's one in Buddhism and Hinduism. Like it's everywhere. It's all throughout, you know, time and space, even in the cultures in Peru that, like, through ayahuasca, they began to understand what the Kundalini serpent of energy was, you know. That's really crazy to like start to think. It's like, why are we in a human body? Why this thing right now? Why do we have these fingers? Why do we have these impulses? Why do we have the choice, right, between bodily pleasures and quote unquote enlightenment or connection to spirit? Why do we have free will? Why do we have all these things? Why did we bite of the apple, you know, and like choose to forget our godly nature and figure it out on our own, you know? Like, I think that's it, you know. I think it all kind of connects together, you know, that we have, I guess, a purpose to learn and to choose. And like Paul Selig says, if you want to go live in the third dimension and just indulge in this dimension, you know, with food and sex and money and stuff, like, do it. Go for it. Yeah, you're maybe lowering the vibration of the rest of us a little bit, but a certain percentage are not going to do that. They're going to go the opposite way. So everything will eventually balance itself out, you know?
And that probably plays into the concept of like spiritual bypass too.
Can you explain what that is? I think I know what it is, but not really.
So I'm no expert on the concept.
We're just talking shit, dude.
But what I feel like it would be when we try and bypass the development of enlightenment, that we are actually staying more so where we were in the beginning.
Like just skipping ahead?
It's like skipping ahead. Like, let's say if I just started walking around in a white robe and I started to behave a certain way, I'm trying to like bypass all of these deep sensations that are actually going on. Therefore, there's an illusion of progression, but there may not be deep development in a spiritual sense.
Yeah. Yes. I felt that. Okay, now I get it. I didn't know really what that was. Like, I think I kind of did. I mean, spiritual bypass, you could kind of put it together just by the two words. But yeah, I felt I had that exact lesson in an ayahuasca ceremony, and I fell for it. It was a trap, and I fell for it. And it was this idea that you can skip all of the internal work and just be Christ consciousness right now. And I was like, wow, that's so crazy. I don't even have to do anything. I can just like, oh, I did it. I'm here, you know? And I felt it for a little bit, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Maybe I just needed to feel it just to know that it's possible.
There's a compass now, right? Now there's a feeling to like help guide you too.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, Don Howard embodying wisdom. Now there's like this direction of what that may feel like. So how do we align more with those kinds of choices and behaviors and frequencies?
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. I fell for it, as in that was the lesson and that's what I needed to do. But I realized very shortly after that, like, I still had all this shit kind of pent up inside me. And
well, there's beauty in embodying those kinds of feelings and sensations, because now like your genetic makeup, your DNA, your cells recognize that frequency. So let's say I don't drink anymore. Actually, I stopped over a year ago. And it's a question I've been wanting to ask you this whole time, but we'll get to that in a minute. But understanding what choices feel and resonate better and what don't. Understanding that in the present moment helped me choose better what I do, who I'm with, what I'm doing, and help me actually navigate better towards ultimately reaching that sensation that I felt before. And it may never be reached, but to align deeper with that is part of the beautiful process that once you recognize it through a meditation or through whatever outlet, it kind of becomes like a lifelong mission and a path.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Like, yeah, sometimes I just have nothing that you nailed it.
It's rejuvenating and it's refreshing, and it feels like that is the beauty in people like you and people like Godzi also aligning with these kinds of behaviors, because your growth literally uplifts the frequency. Therefore, I'm able to grow from, with, for, and to you, and with you in a much broader aspect. And then you get this, this environment of multiple people or energies climbing, and they're feeding off of each other, and they're like truly growing at a healthy rate and a healthy pace.
That little movement you just did right there like freaks me out, because I've seen that, like I've seen humans dancing in this sort of way where you can kind of like see their skeletons and they're full of rainbows and stuff, and they kind of are just like that in ceremony. I was seeing this vision of like what humanity actually is, and it's exactly what you just did. Is They're kind of like coral or like anemone, they're kind of just like feeling up on each other and like doing this little dance, and some of them are going to bring the other ones down in their dance, and other ones are going to help us like lift up and do this thing. And that concept scares the fuck out of me. I'll tell you that, like, because you start to think like, well, growing is physically painful. Like you literally have growing pains whenever you're a kid, and your bones are growing. And so if that's not a great metaphor for like, spiritual or emotional growth or mental growth, like it hurts and it's scary. And, like the concept of seeing the God, like parts of you have to die, and for me, like I sometimes hit a wall like that, and I need to meet people like you or Eric, or need to see someone on a podcast 100%. Or whatever in order to kind of, feel up to them
for
and get
real
that thing. Because like we're all like, I know it's a fucking High School Musical song, but like we really are all in this together. Like I'm not like I get it. Like I know everyone has criticized me on saying that phrase. I don't give a fuck. Like we're in this together, and it's true. Like there's no other option. Like, I feel bad. I understand because I feel it myself, and I think that alone time is good, but I really do. I do pity people that are like true introverts that like don't like other people, and like they don't want to spend time with other people, and they don't want to meet people, and they don't want to grow, and they're just kind of in their own cocoon. I feel bad for them because I know I know what that feels like, but B, I'm like, fuck, like you don't know what you're missing out on. Like, doesn't mean you have to be this social butterfly. You don't have to be always out partying and meeting people and being one of those like socialites where that's your entire life is just based on like, who am I getting coffee with today or whatever. Like,
yeah, there's a balance for sure.
Yeah. But like we do like really need each other. I mean, this is quoted ad nauseum by people, but like, what's the worst punishment that they have to give you on earth? Solitary confinement.
Totally.
Like, death is preferable to being locked in a concrete box with a little rectangular window for the rest of your life. Like, think about that, I know that that's like, people are like, duh, Joe Rogan said that 5 years ago, bro. You're late to the party. Like,
it's a universal concept, though.
It's true. I mean, they figured that out. Who knows how long ago?
Yeah,
who knows when solitary confinement was invented as a punitive measure? But like, it's scary to think about that, And so as we, feel up to each other and we start doing that little dance and we're growing, who knew that your little, you nailed it with that hand movement, but like who knows how far that really goes, our connection to each other. Like we right now may have some beam between our throats. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we're communicating like this and like, it seems like we're on the same page about things. We can't see it. I mean, it might be there. I don't know. Or it might just be in our head. If you visualize that when you hug someone, when I hug someone and I can get my heart up to their heart, I try to visualize like my green ball of light vibrating with their green ball of light. I don't always do it, but sometimes it really feels good to just visualize that. Whether or not it's happening, it feels good to think that we're connected.
That's interesting because even you feeling good, how does that influence the other person? Because if you felt shitty, that would also influence them.
Yeah, like
if you didn't want to hug, there's an energy to that.
That's my least favorite thing of all time, is getting that like that half hug from someone and just like, or just getting that like, that little like really light like tapping hug.
I ran into a girl that I know the other day, just walking down the street, and she literally went out of her way to hug me with one arm, and that was all. It was just like it threw me off. But just like was that weird? It was like.
But again, like we were just talking about, that was her. That wasn't you.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Because it instantly makes you go, oh, I'm a fucking weirdo. Oh my God, she doesn't want to hug me. Like I must be creepy or something. Like I must have not put out the right vibe. Oh, that's unfortunate. But then you realize like, oh, that's just her perspective on hugging. And maybe she doesn't even know any better, And like she just like literally thinks that's like, okay. And she only gives the good hugs to her best friends, Like I had a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine give me the arm hug, and I literally grabbed him and was like, what the fuck, man? Like, we've known each other since we were 10. Give me a real hug. Like, what was that, And he, like, had to, like, forcibly, like, give him this bear hug and was like, I love you. I'll see you later. And he was like, awesome. Okay, I love you too. Like, we got all weird about it. And it just, granted, I probably shouldn't have done that, but whatever.
I mean, it happens.
Sometimes you just got to do it, So.
Before we end, because it's been an hour and 15 minutes of beautiful discussion.
Is that how long do you normally go?
About an hour.
Oh, cool.
But this has been feeling like it should be asked to you, or at least discussed.
Yeah.
In some way. Do you drink anymore, or do you drink, or how do you perform, or how do you feel about alcohol? just to kind of share some more insight before we hear your response, I drank only between like 21 to like 25, 26.
How old are you now?
28.
27,
sorry. I just turned 27. And
33. Sorry, 22. Yeah, whatever.
I don't know how that just happened. That's weird.
It's fine.
It was just my birthday, so I'm getting used to like telling the
Jumping
new age.
up a little bit. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Get it.
But
maybe you're evolving.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But even while drinking, there was always this part of me that knew I didn't want to be doing it, but I did it because of a plethora of reasons, social reasons, whichever. And not that I didn't have good experiences and, you know, met good people and shared beautiful moments, but there's always this knowing that it just really wasn't for me. And the medicine, my second time down, it hit home where it's just like, I don't want to drink anymore. And since then, I haven't picked up anything. And how does that been for you in your process?
Well, this might take me a second, but I have a strange relationship with alcohol. Before I started this work and started doing what I felt was my truth and my higher calling, in order for me to talk to people like I'm talking to you now, I had to be shit-faced. You know what I mean? Like, I had such crippling, like, just draining anxiety about things and just like being myself, and like I'd get embarrassed really easily. My face would get like super red, and I just, you know what I mean? Like, I was very socially like sensitive and like couldn't really like communicate well with people and stuff, and and it was tough. And so, you know, once I discovered alcohol at like 16, and I was like, wow, everyone really likes me whenever I'm drunk. Like, I'm just going to keep getting drunk. And for like 4 years, that's like all I wanted to do. You know, I like threw away like school and, you know, and my, you know, didn't do as well with basketball and stuff as I could have because I just wanted to drink all the time. That's like all I wanted to do. And like, people don't call you an alcoholic when you only binge drink once a week. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot to put your body through, especially as a 17, 18-year-old. But, you know, they think in order to be an alcoholic, you have to be drinking at lunch at school, you know, that you have to be like deep into it. And also, no one is going to call it like it is whenever you're in college. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
And so being able to like skip some weekends and stuff, or like if, you know, in college I was playing Division I basketball, and it was like we had times where we physically could not drink otherwise. Like, it was an agreement on the team, or if you drank, like, you were going to die at this game or practice or whatever. Like, there's a certain times where you couldn't do it. So like, I was able to do that and rationalize it in my head. Like, whatever, it's not that bad. But man, was I hiding from some stuff, you know, and really pushing myself away from like doing anything productive and good. And I would get like bad, like really, really drunk, like throwing up, like causing fights, like doing, like I was just like not fun to be around. It went from like, I'm really happy and smiley and just like, yeah, like everything's cool, you know, and then it became like sad, you know, and no one really ever like told me. I had to like figure that out on my own. And I think it really hit for me that it wasn't good for me whenever I would like not remember like people I slept with. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's bizarre to like not even know who they were. Like, to walk around campus and be like, I don't know who that was. You know, like, I don't have any recollection of this person. And if they came up to me, I'd be like, I'm sorry, it's nice to meet you. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, to have that happen like 2 times, I was like, all right, I need to figure this out, you know? And of course I didn't listen. It took me many, many times to integrate that lesson. But ever since I started this plant medicine path and doing ayahuasca and stuff, the amount that I drink is now occasion based. But even then, I'm kind of getting to that point where I don't really know if I want to do it anymore. And the occasions are always like, oh, I was invited to some special event, or like we're celebrating something, or like a Christmas party or it's my birthday or whatever. And like, I like that. And I'm finding now that I need much less alcohol. And in fact, I don't need any alcohol. I just choose to drink it so that I can reach this state. Like, it may be a little bit of conscious bypass, but like, for me, bringing the perspective of like, I am choosing to bring myself into the third dimension with this and just vibrate with the people and have a good time for a night. That might be a nice little Band-Aid to put on it, you know, that I'm bringing about this almost negative energy on myself for the sake of fun, you know, like all things being blessed, excuse me, that could be fine, you know, I don't know. But it just getting a healthy perspective on it has been huge for me and has made me want to do it quite a lot less, like 2 or 3 times a year as opposed to like every weekend, you know. And it wasn't like I had to go through this period of withdrawal. I really don't have like an addictive personality as far as like substances go, but I do have an addictive personality in terms of like what is going to make me feel the best socially, if that makes sense, or like in my life. And so if I, you know, go out and everyone like wants to hang out with me and I make all these friends and stuff and I have all these new Instagram followers and like I'm getting texts from people and being like, yo, you're so cool. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. And then I get that hangover and I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I didn't make any like new friends really. Damn. It's like they just thought I was cool because I was hammered and like dancing and being crazy. Like,
that's so interesting.
You know, they don't know me the way that you know me now. You know, this wasn't their first impression of me. Their first impression of me was being like, woo, you know, and doing like the fucking.
And that's how they know you, and that's how they perceive you, and that's their relationship to you.
Yeah, and so which
is interesting.
So they see me. Like, for example, on social media, they see my Instagram page and they're like, oh, this dude's not like that at all. What was that? What was that monster we saw last night doing all this stuff? And so it's a hard thing to reconcile, you know, and to like start to think like, oh, maybe I am bypassing myself a little bit there. Maybe I am selling myself a little short by pretending like it's okay to do that still, even if it's just in moderation. But at the same time, I don't know, like, I still want to have fun, you know, I still want to do these things until I can reach, you know, with my mind, the state of consciousness that being drunk is without any alcohol. Having a couple drinks, I don't know. I see a problem with it, I guess, if I could wrap this all up. I see there's a problem with it, but I'm trying to not see the problem in as healthy a way as possible. I don't want to ignore it.
Totally.
But I'm trying to reshape it just so it's this thing that I'm not, you know, there's a lot of stuff that truthfully, like, I'm afraid of doing and I'm working on not being afraid of it. You know, I'm afraid of eating the wrong thing. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing and stuff, and letting go of that fear. It accompanies the fear I have of alcohol making me sick or stupid or weak, or, you know, all these different things that can come about from drinking too much. I'm trying to like let go of that and just be like, look, it's a substance. This is a party. Let's have fun. Let's not go out of control. Let's not throw up and be hungover for the next week. But, you know, it's like this balancing act I'm trying to do right now, because I don't think that it would be wise for me to just drop it cold turkey, you know, if that makes sense, and just be like, fuck it, I'm out. You know, I think it would be,
it's part of the process.
Yeah, I think
it's like that's the trial and error that you're going through right now.
Yeah, I think that I love, do you know Bill Burr, the comedian? Yeah. He has a great joke about how he let go of his religion, and it was, you know, in curling, whenever the guy is like riding with the little puck thing and then he just like lets it go. He's riding with it the whole time. He's learning the lessons with that thing together. That's me right now with alcohol. Is just like, all right, we've been through some really good and bad shit together, and eventually I'm just going to like, you know, and it's going to be gone. And I think that that's probably what I need to do, as opposed to just like leaving it all behind, is just like riding it out, and then when the time is right, don't need it anymore.
That's beautiful.
And I wouldn't say that I need it in any way. I could easily, for the rest of my life, avoid it. But it's like, when the opportunity arises, I'm still wrestling with that rationalization of whether or not it's a good idea for me to drink.
Wyatt, you're a beautiful human being.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man, that was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, this was great.
Real.
This it felt totally natural.
It
totally
really did.
Totally right. Like I don't know. You put out a thing on Instagram.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, so okay, to wrap this up, I guess in a sense, literally, that was kind of a way for me to put out and invite people who were willing to be on the show and wanting to reach out and wanting to do exactly what you did.
Mm-hmm.
So I put out a post saying that, I'm bringing my podcast gear to Austin. Like, hit me up if you want to do an episode. And you were one of the first people to reach out.
I think I saw it like 12 minutes after you posted it or something. I remember being like, I'll wait like 20 minutes. I don't want to be the first one. And I was like, wait, what a stupid idea. Who cares? Like, why? And you don't text someone for like 30 minutes to like prove
so
that
dumb.
It's the dumbest.
So dumb.
I have stopped caring. I will text someone
immediately.
They'll see me typing as soon as they send the message. I don't care.
That's
it's annoying. Like,
dumb thing.
I'm not saying I'm the best texter. I forget to text people back a lot. But like, if you know what I mean, like I'm not worried about looking cool, if that makes sense.
I know,
so having that
ridiculous.
thought again was a nice little like get a you know what I mean, like a little resurgence of some feeling I had when I was 16 that I could put to rest finally,
So ridiculous.
So thank you for
reaching out.
Yeah, no, thank you for everything. Like this is
man.
great. And we haven't even started any of the stuff we're doing this weekend.
Is pre-Fit for Service Mastermind, which is why we are here. I don't even know if I said that in the beginning. We're both here because...
You mentioned it very briefly, but
like
kind of like
words.
where the 99% of people are going to be like, huh?
So we are here, if you have listened to this entire episode, for the Fit for Service Mastermind with Aubrey Marcus and crew and Godsey and Kyle Kingsbury and Caitlin and everybody involved. And I think Dan Engel's going to be here. Super stoked for that.
Dude, he's a fucking warlock, dude.
Yeah, he's dope.
Yeah, I get freaked out whenever I see him, like in a good way. I just see him and I'm like, that guy. Do you play video games at all?
Yeah.
Do you like Dragon Age?
I never played that one. There's
an elf in it named Solus that he looks exactly like, and he's like a gray mage. Like he's like neutral, he does bad things for his own good reasons. And that's what I look at Dan Engel and I see him and I'm like, huh, what are you up to?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Wyatt, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll see you right now. We'll see you right now. And we'll see you this weekend.
I'll see you at 6:00 tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Much love.
Much love, dude. Until next time.